So, what other meeting have you been to lately that before even lunch, you've heard from all four of our congressional delegation? You've heard from a United States Senator, from the Attorney General, a state senator, and a hero, and we haven't even had lunch yet. So, look what else is ahead of us. So I just wanted to finish up right quick and the things that I've started throughout the day. But I wanted you to know that last year's legislative session ended with so many miracles, and I wanted to share that with you. And I believe in miracles, just like we've heard from Tim today. And those same principles occurred as we worked at the session that made these miracles happen. When I left the session, I was really, usually the session's over and you take a break. Well, that didn't happen this year because this was a presidential election year, and this particular presidential election year had a lot of things going on. And things like, I got very involved, as did so many that I'm looking at in this room right now, with the Ted Cruz campaign. And of course, that means not just doing what you can to talk about him, but when you're involved in a presidential campaign and you're going into the convention, that National Republican Convention is extremely important, and getting the right people elected is very important. And so I spent my assignment was, well, first of all, we all spent our time just trying to get through our primary, and was very successful with almost 70% of the vote going to Ted Cruz. And then, yes, that was, and I'm not here to talk about, we all picked who we supported. We worked hard for the person that we supported, and did the best we can. And in the end, we had a different candidate, and then you've got to look at that candidate and decide where you're going from there. But let's put it this way, nobody, I don't think, in this room wanted Hillary. So, and we're hopeful, and we're looking toward the future with like, as you can tell from I asked all of our speakers today to take the subject they did about the future and the positive feelings that we have toward the future. So many of us went out, worked hard, and got elected as national delegates. And then after getting elected, and that was my responsibility, to try to get all these national delegates elected that would be Cruz supporters, because the people voted, and that was the mandate. 70% of the people of Utah, of the Republicans in Utah, wanted us to go there to vote for Ted Cruz. And so we worked very hard and got almost all of the delegates elected as Cruz supporters. Then the next thing was, of course, getting on the committees, and there's some very important committees. Platform Committee and the Rules Committee being two of the most important. And I was able to get elected to the Platform Committee, and that was quite an experience. And by the time we were through, and I've done it before, this is not the first time I've served on the Platform Committee, because I have, actually this is the 6th time that my husband and I have gone back as delegates or alternates to the Republican Convention. And so serving on that Platform Committee was an honor. And we were able to pass the most conservative Republican platform in the history that I know of. Phyllis Schlafly said this was the most conservative platform. And it was an honor and a pleasure to be able to serve on that Platform Committee, because I ran to be a delegate because Phyllis Schlafly asked me to. And I ran to get on the Platform Committee because Phyllis Schlafly asked me to. And through incredible blessing, because it's not easy. It's very, very hard to get elected to be a national delegate, and even harder to get elected to be on the Platform Committee. And it doesn't happen without incredible blessings. But I was determined, because my dear, sweet friend and leader, Phyllis Schlafly, asked me to do that. And then an amazing thing happened, yet another miracle. And that was my committee assignment. Now, they send you, once you're elected, they send you this information and say, give us the committee, your favorite committee, and then maybe a second choice and a third choice, and you pray and hope you'll get your first choice. And mine had to do with the life issues, and wanting to be on that committee that dealt with the pro-life issue and the marriage issue. But I didn't get on that committee. I didn't get my second choice either. I didn't get my third choice. What? I got put on the committee that was the National Security and Defense Committee. What was I doing on that committee? I got in there, and in fact, I was actually going to contact him and say, you don't want me on that committee. I don't know anything about these issues. But something told me just to do what I was supposed to do, and I said, okay, I'll be on that committee. Well, I get in that committee, and there's, generals, military, me. I'm thinking, what am I doing here? But the night before the committee meeting started, Phyllis was also a delegate from Missouri, and I met with her, and she asked me what committee I was on. I told her. She took a hold of my hands, and she was so excited, and she said, you make sure my language is still in there. You have language in there, Phyllis? And she said, yes. And she said she talked about how hard she'd worked in the past to get this language in the platform that talked about military superiority. It's beautiful language. It's wonderful language. And I said, okay. Now, I wouldn't have thought about that. I wouldn't have known about that. What if I hadn't been with Sweet Phyllis that night? Because that was in that 2-week period. Because when you're on that committee, you go in a week early. So it was in that 2-week period that I saw Phyllis several times. But those were the last times I saw her. And so it was just amazing. I went back, I looked it up, her language was not in there. But with some help from some friends, we were able to find it. I was able to propose an amendment in the committee, speak to why it was so important, and then I added because Phyllis Schlafly said, and these people on that committee knew who she was, and that was why I was on that committee, because they put that language back in. And she was so happy and so thrilled, and it was such important language. We need to remind everybody about the superiority of our military and that that's what we want from our military. And she, every time we talked, I saw her, she was grinning and asking. In fact, we had conference calls with Phyllis, from across, all the state leaders from across the nation, and others would have these conference calls maybe once a month to just talk about what was going on. And the very last conference call that we had with Phyllis in August, she told what I just talked about, and she said, I want to thank Gayle Ruzicka for saving that language. Well, that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have been on that committee that I don't know why I was on. I learned a lot while I was on that committee. There were other things I won't go into now that also made it obvious why I needed to be on that committee, because one of the issues had to do with homosexuals in the military. And I was just the only one in that room that would continually say, no, I don't think so. Because we're Republicans, and we have to, our platform reflects who we are. So I started out by saying, why is it called, my talk called Taiwan? Well, I'm out of time, so I can't tell you. But I am. I'm going to actually take the time to tell you in a bit, just to take 5 minutes after lunch and tell you, because it's amazing, another amazing experience I had after finishing all the other things that I did this year, and we were just in August. I ended up being contacted with David, who's in the room, and Danny's in the room. They contacted me and asked me to bring some friends, and this was the Taiwan government. And we started out with lunch with them, talking to them. I love these people. They're about freedom and liberty. They are a democracy. They're a brand new democracy, and they're learning. And a month later, I found myself in Taiwan. So I'm going to tell you about that after lunch. I just want to take 5 minutes and finish my story about Taiwan, because it was such a great experience, and I just want to share it with you. The reason that I was invited to go over and by the government and have this incredible week over there was because of media, which is really kind of amusing. I said, media? Because they were bringing media in from all over the world. There was about 20 people. And I have a once-a-week talk radio show that I'm sure every one of you are listening to on K-Talk Radio every Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock. But in case you're not, write that down. 9 to 10 every week. But they were aware of the radio show, and they wanted me to come. So there were two of us from the United States. One was out of D.C., one of the newspapers out of D.C., and me with my radio show. It was such an amazing experience because not only did they daily, all day long, showing, and we met with several of their agencies and branches of government, and as they shared the Taiwan dream. But there's something exciting about a country who has, is experimenting with democracy. Something exciting about a country who's standing up to a very powerful nation that's a few miles away that could take them out at any time. And they live with that threat. But they're positive and they're happy and they're doing things efficiently. And I was so impressed with these people. Happy people, kind people. I've never met such kind people who treated us with incredible respect. Even strangers on the street. Such respect. I went to the temple while I was there in downtown Taipei and loved it. Each day I was just so grateful, felt so blessed, and thought I could just keep doing this. It was just such an incredible blessing. And I think each of us need to look into that. It's part of the platform. The Republican platform is a big section on Taiwan, has been there for a few years. And they're so thrilled that we would do that, where we talk about their rights as a country. Because, there's only a couple of countries in this entire world that will recognize them as a nation. We here in the United States do not recognize them as a nation. And why don't we? And why are the other countries the same way? Because of the fear of making China angry. The fear of not being able to do business with China and use their money. Because China has said, if you recognize Taiwan, then we're not going to do business with you. And it's really sad that we do business with a communist country, a dictatorship, people that we really shouldn't want to be associating with, and we ignore Taiwan. Now, before I went to Taiwan, I thought, I need to check this out. I'm just not going to, go off to Taiwan by myself with my new friends, and they're great friends. David, standing here taking the picture, was with me when I had that first luncheon with them along with Danny, and they are our friends. They are so much fun, and we really, really enjoy them, and they treat us so well. They send me little gifts like a journal, a calendar, and I just love to hear from them because they were such good people. But I needed to check them out, so I called the governor's office and talked to the people in the governor's office because here in Utah, we do have a good relationship with Taiwan. That's why they come here often. And then I called the LDS Church. Well, I'll tell you what, they love Taiwan. They've sent 60,000 missionaries there. In fact, I was talking to one of the men that I called, my friend there, who's in public affairs, and I was telling him, and he was saying, oh, yeah, it's a good place to go. And I said, well, I thought it must be okay because of all. I said, do you know that we've sent 60,000 missionaries to Taiwan? He says, yeah, I was one of them. And so every place you look, there's somebody. We had a man in our ward who, he was so excited to find out that I went to Taiwan because he served his mission in Taiwan. So we have great relationships there. But I talked to the people while I was there, and I loved talking to them. And it was interesting. Like one young man I talked to was asking all kinds of questions about what's it like, with their new government now. And even with their new way of doing things and living under a democracy, they have the same problems, they have of government. And right now, they have a government that's promoting and supporting Taiwan and democracy. And they're excited about that. But one young man, I was asking him questions, and he says, I says, why is it so fragile? And tell me, share some things with me. One of the things he said, he says, my parents, for instance, like the old ways. I thought, what? That didn't dawn on me. How many? He says, oh, yeah. He says, a lot of the older people like the old ways. I said, living under a dictatorship, not having this freedom, he said his mom and dad, his have said to him, but this is just too hard. So I thought that was interesting. Then I talked to young people who were loving it. And so, in fact, when I would see somebody, I'd just start talking to them. Because they would see, for instance, I had to leave a day early. And so I was at the train station by myself, not speaking the language. And a young man walked up to me, because obviously he could tell I didn't live there. And he asked me, where I was from and what was I doing there. And he spoke English, so I was able to start asking him questions. And he was so interesting to talk to. He was a student there, and all about, how he felt about democracy. And of course, he was excited. He was excited for freedom and excited to have it get better and better. There's a lot of things they have to learn about freedom, like it's hard to have freedom if you ask the government to take care of you. I thought, yeah, we know about that. And as he talked about the various things that they're learning to adjust to and get used to, but moving forward to get better and better, I thought, we're going in the opposite direction. They're looking for freedom and knowing it means getting the government out of their life. And we have freedom, and we're getting rid of it by putting the government into our lives. I was so grateful for that experience, to be there for that week, to learn about these good people, to continue that friendship. In fact, Actually, one of them was going to be here today. He was going to come over. They have an office in San Francisco, a regional office, and we're in that region. And he was going to come and be here today because he loves Eagle Forum. When they first approached me, it wasn't about my radio show. They approached me because of the values that Eagle Forum stands for. They first had spent months, probably more than months, reading about us, following us, what we do, and they said, your values are our values. And so we wanted to get to know you. And so Danny and David and I sat there and we talked with them and learned so much about them, and we're so grateful. That was the beginning of the friendship. And then they just wanted me to come and learn about that. So going with the media was really a great experience because they show the media a lot of different things. I mean, I did some weird things and found myself climbing a mountain in the rainstorm in the wrong kinds of clothes. I was doing things I didn't think I could possibly do, but I did, and I loved every minute of it. So I would say to any of you, if you ever get a chance to do that, go learn about these people because they are wonderful people, and it's a great relationship to have. And the reason my friend couldn't come today and be here today is because the president of Taiwan is in San Francisco this weekend. And he says, and she's keeping us really busy. I said, yeah. Well, right after we heard that, it was in the news that Donald Trump had called the president of Taiwan, I sent a text to they call him the general. He's the something general over the regional office here. And I sent him a text and I said, is it really true that Donald Trump called your president? And he texted me back and he said, yep. Which is funny. If you knew how this man talks, that was really funny. So when they called me to say, gee, I wish we could come to your conference, but we can't. And he said, that the president was coming. He says, yep, that same president. So I tell you what, if I wasn't doing this today, I'd have gone over and met the president because I thought that was such a great experience. You never know where life's going to take you. And it happened quickly. Thank goodness I had a passport. But being there with the media, going, and we didn't just stay in Taipei. We went down all the way to south, took the fast train, did all those places, went to these places, just so we could see how self-contained they are. They're very self-contained. They have to be. They're a little tiny island with a lot of people. And to see how they handle that and how they protect themselves and how they live under that threat of the one China policy that's constantly a threat to them. Learn about them, read about them, get to know who these people are because they're good people and their freedom is fragile. They need friends like us in order to get through this.